And we are back on schedule here at the Next News Network. Thank you for joining us on this afternoon edition of Between the Headlines. I'm Gary Franchi. It is 5:06 p.m. in your nation's capital. We're going to be getting to the White House rundown, give you the latest, what's going on there. We've got more news we're going to get to in this hour. We got some breaking updates on the assassination attempt on the Treasury Secretary, some new outcomes there. Also, a showdown in the Oval Office that you do not want to miss. President Trump, of course, pulling no punches at the fake news media. We'll bring you the footage. And, of course, the controversial topic of flock cameras is resurfacing. The president weighing in on that as well. Also, just dropping on the channel moments ago, an interview that I just conducted with Jonathan Cahn about his new book, The Altar of Pergamon. And I'll tell you, of all the interviews I have done, I think that this interview was one of the most fascinating interviews that I have ever done, and it is something that you must watch. It is on the channel now, but of course, don't watch it right now. Watch it after this live episode. But his new book is called The Altar of Pergamon, and it is out, I believe it's dropping September 1st. You might be able to get pre-orders now on Amazon. Regardless, the interview will blow your mind. There are things that were discussed that I really had no idea the parallels to modern history. And how we got to where we are today. So make sure you checked out that interview, and we're going to get into our White House rundown right now. I'm Gary Franchi, Next News Network Chief White House Correspondent, bringing you everything out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue over the last 24 hours, streaming with our partners at Trump Daily Post. And the headline is a number. Violent crime in America fell 9.3% in 2025, the largest single-year drop ever recorded. Murder down 18.1%, and we'll walk you through the President's Day. Then you get the full release, plus a First Lady announcement landing Thursday in the Rose Garden. From this morning's pool report filed by John Bennett of Roll Call at 11:21, there were no scheduled changes, no public events. A Marine stood post outside the West Wing entrance. Behind that door, the President worked a full closed press day, executive time, and policy meetings in the Oval at 11, noon, 2:30, 4, and 5. Fox led the pool rotation, no cameras, just work. 12:01, the press office called a lunch lid until about 1. That's routine, and it's worth noting only because the day never opened back up. And now the release, the whole day was built around. President Trump announced the FBI's Uniform Crime Report for 2025, and the numbers speak for themselves. Violent crime down 9.3%, the largest annual decline on record. Murder down 18.1%, tying the lowest rate in recorded history. Robbery down 18.5%, rape down 7.6%, aggravated assault down 7.2%, property crime down 12.4%, and the preliminary first half of 2026 data goes even further. Violent crime off another 10.6%, murder down 23%. Under FBI Director Kash Patel, the Bureau logged nearly 54,000 violent crime arrests and captured 9 of the FBI's 10 most wanted, 9 of the 10. The White House credits empowered law enforcement and the rejection of the soft-on-crime experiment that Democrats ran in American cities. Alongside that, deportation operations are surging, manufacturing capital spending is booming, and yesterday's record prescription drug price drop and bigger tax refunds are still moving. Looking ahead, the First Lady Melania Trump will announce a strategic alliance with IndyCar, Fox Corporation, Indiana University, and Purdue University to expand her Fostering the Future initiative, expanding economic opportunity for young Americans aging out of foster care. That's the Rose Garden Thursday, August 20th, 4 p.m. Eastern, with President Trump attending alongside Roger Penske, IndyCar Doug Bowles, Fox Sports Eric Shanks, and driver Scott Dixon, Alexander Rossi, Scott McLaughlin, and Graham Rahl. Kids with lived foster experiences will be there too. It runs ahead of the first ever Freedom 250 Grand Prix of Washington on the 22nd and 23rd. So the takeaway is simple, folks. A closed-door workday, 0 photo ops, and the safest America in generations, documented by the FBI's own numbers. That's delivery, not messaging. And that is the latest from the White House. All right, now let's get into the top stories that are driving the news cycle today and welcome you to the broadcast. Thank you for joining us on X at Next News and Trump Daily Post, as well as on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch and Facebook. Yes, we are broadcasting live on all platforms, so thank you for following us there. If you haven't started following us there, what are you waiting for? Give us a follow. We'd love to have you. But, of course, we don't look for followers. We want leaders, and that's what this whole show is about. We want to empower you so that you can be armed with the information to protect yourself and your family and your friends to make those decisions that matter. So we're going to get into our first story of the evening here. We have we got the news about the Treasury Secretary Bessent and the assassination attempt. And of course, you may have heard about how President Trump was smuggled out of a nation just recently, which all ties into these threats that are just continuing to hit the administration every single way, causing them to take drastic but not unusual evasive maneuvers. So let's get into it, Brian. Ryan English walked into Washington with a folding knife and 2 Molotov cocktails to kill Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent 2 hours after he was sworn in. The federal judge could have given him 121 months. Instead, he gave him 73, 6 years. The judge explained why out loud, and I want you to hear this reasoning for yourself. We're talking about 121 months. That was the ceiling, and the judge went to 73 and gave English 4 years back. And Bessent never said a word about it until last month, when he stood up in Washington and dared the press to show up. His line, quote, "Any of you who want to report that this is a fiction and does not exist, be there for the sentencing this August." And that's the sitting cabinet secretary calling reporters liars to the faces. I'm going to roll that clip. I'm also going to put the judge's own reasoning for the discounted sentence on your screen. You see, Scott Bessent stood there in Washington last month and told the press to show up in August. That's a man running on pure grit, and grit burns you down at the cellular level. So here's the mechanism. Your mitochondria are batteries that power everything, and when they drain, fatigue and slow healing move in. Red and near-infrared light therapy is one of the most well-researched tools we have, and studies show it helps cells produce more energy, reduces cellular level stress, and supports natural repair processes. I researched this alongside health journalist Jonathan Otto, then I got a Red Life unit for myself. Thank you, Jonathan. 9 clinically studied wavelengths, dual-chip technology, twice the power of standard devices and built to actually work. Go to myredlight.com/NNN. Links in the description. Use NNN Rep 25 for individual items, 25% off individual devices. NNN Rep 30 for bundles, 30% off. Stock is limited. Now let's get back to that courtroom. See, English turned himself in. He walked up to Capitol Police and told them what he was carrying. And that's the part the sentence hangs on. Surrender as mitigation. So the man who came to burn Bessent alive gets credit for changing his mind at the door. In which you see how the reaction lane handles that. So let's get into it here. Molotov plot against Bessent. Judge hands back 73 months. A transgender woman, this is how Fox News frames it, a transgender woman convicted of crimes tied to an attempted assassination of Treasury Secretary Bessent sentenced 73 months in prison. He previously revealed he was targeted just 2 hours after being sworn in, calling the case evidence of a real threat from violent left-wing extremism. Eric Darty says 73 months isn't close to enough, and he's got tape of Bessent daring the press to show up for the sentencing. Transgender leftists who tried to assassinate Bessent sentenced to 73 months in prison. Ryan English claims to be a woman and admitted to showing up with weapons and Molotovs to take Bessent out after he was confirmed to the Treasury. He needed more time in prison. Thank God Bessent is safe. Let's check in here.
Accused of trying to assassinate Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is set to be sentenced today as security threats continue to surround the Trump administration. Lucas Tomlinson is reporting live from the White House on this. Good morning, Lucas.
Good morning, Dana. The Treasury Secretary never spoke about this attempted assassination until talking about it here in Washington just last month.
I was the subject of an assassination attempt February 2024 by an addled left-wing activist 2 hours after being sworn into my job. So any of you who want to report that this is a fiction and does not exist, be there for the sentencing this August.
Here we are, Dana. Right now, that sentencing hearing is taking place here in the nation's capital. 24-year-old Ryan English of South Deerfield, Massachusetts, pled guilty for charges related to attempted assassination of then cabinet member nominee Scott Bessent and for carrying a dangerous weapon on the grounds of the Capitol, according to U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro. According to court documents, about 3:12 p.m. on January 27, 2025, a week after the inauguration, English approached a U.S. Capitol police officer near the south door of the Capitol building and stated, "I'd like to turn myself in." English admitted to possessing a knife and 2 Molotov cocktails. Incidents like this and multiple assassination attempts on President Trump's life, which motivated the president to build the ballroom.
This is for future presidents. This isn't for me. This is for future presidents. And it's a gift. We're making a gift to our country, spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build a ballroom.
President Trump weighing in on the ballroom and the reason why. Nick Sorter lays out what English admitted 2 Molotov cocktails at the Capitol meant for Bessent's feet during the confirmation vote. He writes, the trans guy who traveled to D.C. intent to kill Bessent, now sentenced. Trans violence is completely out of control. And of course, we have that clip. He says he got off too easy. What do you think?
I was the subject of an assassination attempt February 2024 by an addled left-wing activist 2 hours after being sworn into my job.
Now the numbers behind the number, Lucas Tomlinson breaks down why the judge went 73 months when the max was 121 and the 20 months already credited.
District judge has sentenced Michael Riley English to 73 months in prison for crimes related to an attempted assassination of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. And this crime took place about a week after the inauguration when Bessent was a Treasury Secretary nominee. And the suspect, Riley, has now been convicted of 73 months. Actually turned himself in to the U.S. Capitol Police saying he had 2 Molotov cocktails and a knife. And the judge, when handing out the sentence, was just over 6 years. Some people may have been wondering why it's not longer. The judge took that in consideration, was facing a maximum of 121 months in prison. But the judge took that in consideration. This is something, Kaylee, we didn't know about until just last month when, at least we hadn't heard from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent when he said last month what it meant to have this person try to attempt an assassination on his life. So again, 73 months is the sentence for Michael Riley English. And that sentence should be going to be started soon. And the judge is awarding 20 months' time served already for the time English remained in prison.
So, the wire version of it, straight from Breaking 911. Transgender woman convicted of crimes tied to an assassination attempt. Well, Bessent wasn't just a target here. Donnie Cope reports Bessent, Marco Rubio were sitting on a decoy Air Force One out of Turkey when President Trump flew a different jet. You may have heard about this. A decision to sneak President Trump out of Ankara on a separate Air Force One jet last month was made about 4 or 5 hours before his scheduled departure, driven by intel that an Iranian terror cell had snuck into Turkey with a shoulder-fired missile, according to a senior Trump administration official. I was actually, when he was going to Turkey, I was terrified that this would occur. I had a feeling that he would be a sitting duck there. And of course, behind the scenes, all these things happen. So, you know, you can just kind of tell the way the temperature in the world is right now. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary Bessent were on a decoy flight last month when President Trump secretly took a different plane from the publicly identified Air Force One aircraft from the NATO summit, according to sources. War Secretary Pete Hegseth was on a secret flight with President Trump out of Turkey. Rubio and Bessent, who separated and maintained the line of secession, were aware the president was on another secret plane. Several other White House aides were on the decoy flight, including Miller, Scharf, Chung, Needham, and Worthington and Crowley. While the plane the president was traveling on is supposed to be identified as Air Force One, the decoy flight was publicly identified as Air Force One. So this elaborate deception wasn't improvised. It traces back to a 2018 Christmas trip to Iraq, where a British plane spotter blew President Trump's cover by photographing the unmistakable presidential jet over South Yorkshire, forcing the White House to develop increasingly sophisticated deceptions for every secret trip since. And now we fill in the gaps here. Constitution X. This is what will raise the hair on your neck. A catering truck, a ghost military jet, an Iranian cell with a shoulder-fired missile.
I agree with David that this is highly unusual, and you know, Caitlin, you cover the White House and the president. You know how the machinations of his travel normally work. But I think it was unusual because it sounds to me like the threat was unusual. I mean, it sounds like this was a very, very serious threat to the president's safety. And when you consider that he's already survived numerous assassination attempts or people at least thinking about assassinating him, and you consider the region that he was in, I'm glad they engaged in all this cloak and dagger and all this deception to keep him safe. I think every time he walks outside of the White House, whether he's traveling domestically or internationally, somewhere in his mind he must believe, you know, I don't know if I'm coming back here tonight because of what he has lived through. I fear for him and what might happen to him every single day. And, you know, this story raised up the hairs on the back of my neck when you consider how they had to move him around. But I'm glad they did it, and I'm glad they got him back to the United States safely. I'm glad he was at the meeting over there, by the way. It was important for the American president to be there. But you can only imagine, and David knows this, the level of threat and the level of alarm that would have been required to set up this kind of deception must have been extremely heavy.
And that is where President Trump, right there on your screen, being smuggled out in a catering truck from Air Force One. Absolutely wild. These are the times that we are living in right now. Be there for the sentencing this August. That's what Scott Bessent said on camera in Washington to a press corps that spent a year pretending violent left-wing extremism against the administration was a fiction. Well, August came, the sentencing happened, and the cameras that swore it wasn't real got 6 years and a shrug. So show me the outlet that ran a correction today. Nobody. Bessent told him exactly when and where to be, and the same people who called this made up couldn't be bothered to sit in the room. And that's the fight we're in. Not a judge who went soft, though he did. 4 years soft. It's an entire industry that decided a knife and 2 firebombs aimed at a cabinet secretary wasn't a story. Wasn't a story worth their time. So you carry it. Send this to the person in your life who told you political violence only runs one direction, and drop the sentence number in the comments and let it sit there. And subscribe, because we're going to keep the names and the numbers in front of you when the networks won't, which is exactly why we built you a way around them. You see, Bessent had to stand up in a room and demand the press show up, and that's how blocked the real reporting is. So text White House to 844-840-4963. Next News Network sits in the White House press pool. And what we pull straight out of that building lands on your phone every night, including the pieces that never fit into a 12-minute segment. Now, some of you are done being an audience and you want an assignment. We'll text Signal to that same number, enlist in the Signal Corps, and start taking real missions. Your operations get tracked, you rank up, so get in tonight. All right, moving right along. The news is on fire today. We're going to be moving into the Oval Office, and we are going to okay, guys, I don't know. Listen, we're not bringing this drama onto my show today, and anyone who decides that they want to bring drama onto into this chat room, they're going to find out what happens. Because I have a little finger right here and I have a mouse. All I have to do is click ban and block. So, you have a choice. I don't even if you're just talking about it, right? I don't even want to hear about it. Okay? I understand people are standing up for me. They're defending me. They're supporting this channel, but this is a conversation that is not going to be taking place on my show. If you guys want to go hash it out in the Discord, you can certainly go do that, but this is not the place for it. Okay? I love you guys. Thank you, sure you. I appreciate it. Thank you for tipping me off to what was going on. We're going to leave it there. leave it in the Discord. This show and the comments here are about the content that we create and not people's drama that is created outside of this newsroom, outside of Discord, or elsewhere. End of story. I don't have to take my time from my show so that I have to explain this to people. I have a show to do. I'm not a babysitter. All right? So, sure you, if anyone brings it up, you go ahead and you can mute them for 10 minutes. I don't care. That's what's going to happen. And that includes defending me, guys. Keep the comments on the chat on topic. Thank you, sure you. Screenshots, again, don't, what is this, JBE? Please. Brian, let's go to the next topic, please. Quiet! Quiet! You're very disrespectful in front of this young man. That's what President Trump said to CNN's Kristen Holmes in the Oval Office. Why? Because a lifeguard who pulled a 10-year-old boy out of the Santa Cruz surf was standing right there getting honored, and she screamed over him about Kim Jong-un. We're talking about a 10-year-old rescued kid, a hero lifeguard, and CNN decided that was the moment for military exercise questions. President Trump turned to the boy and asked him, "Don't you find her disrespectful?" He understands. The child had better manners than the White House press corps, and that was only line number 1 that afternoon. So stay with me because I'm going to roll the moment President Trump takes apart CNN's story that sailors on the USS Abraham Lincoln were running out of food. And I'm going to read you the exact words a retired admiral said to his face. You see, a 10-year-old boy from Santa Cruz had better manners than the White House press corps, and that tells you exactly how little the people in charge of the narrative can be trusted with your future. Same goes for your money. We've got midterm elections coming up, control of Congress on the line, and markets hate uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds volatility. Between now and November, it could be the most volatile stretch for stock market and economy we've ever seen. So here's the good news. Noble Gold Investments has spent over a decade helping everyday Americans protect your wealth with precious metals and physical gold and silver. Hedge the volatility. It's simple, easy, it's safe. Go to nextnewsgold.com or call that number on your screen, 877-646-5347. Call Noble Gold, mention my name, and you get one of these beautiful America 250 10-ounce silver bars when you open a new qualified account. Don't let Election Day arrive without a plan. Now back to that Oval Office tape. See, I've, quote, been on ships that are out there much longer than that, sir. A retired admiral walked up to President Trump and said that at a group meeting. And that's the CNN starving sailors story, dead on the floor. Now watch what CNN put out in writing to defend Kristen Holmes. Town Hall reporting on this fact. President Trump, you are quiet, you're being disrespectful. He understands, quiet, who are you with? I'm with CNN. You are fake news.
Mr. President, just scale back on those.
Quiet. You're very disrespectful in front of this young man. Okay? Don't you find her disrespectful? He understands. Quiet. Who are you with?
I'm with CNN.
Fake news.
I
You're
just wanted
fake
to follow
news.
up on this up.
You're a loud, boisterous person. You're fake news.
I was
Be
trying
quiet.
to find out if
Be
you had
quiet.
been talking
Be
to
quiet.
Kim Jong-un, if he had asked you
You're a
to
fake
scale back
reporter, and you
on those
report fake
military
news.
exercises.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, is
Yeah, almost as bad as when he used to go after Jim Acosta. But yeah, that was pretty impressive. I haven't seen him an outburst like that from him for a while. Fox and Friends has the full context. The question was about Kim Jong-un thrown at President Trump during a ceremony honoring the lifeguard.
did he ask you specifically to scale back on those?
Quiet. You're very disrespectful in front of this young man. Okay? Don't you find her disrespectful? He understands. Quiet. Who are you with?
I'm with CNN.
Fake news.
I just
You're
wanted to
fake
follow
news.
up on this South Korea question.
You're a loud, boisterous person. You're fake news.
I was trying to find out if you had been talking to Kim Jong-un.
There's the other camera angle there. She's just fighting for her life in the Oval Office. Who are you with? I'm with CNN. You're fake news. Well, CNN was not going to let that stand. They put out a statement calling their reporter one of the most respected journalists of the White House and said the president's words were beneath the office. Of course they did. Kristen Holmes is one of the most respected and accomplished journalists covering the White House this afternoon. She did her job and asked the President of the United States a tough, relevant, and newsworthy question on behalf of the American people. Public officials are free to challenge reporting they disagree with, but personal attacks on journalists for asking questions are beneath the office and inconsistent with the principles of a free press. We stand firmly behind Kristen and reject these attacks in the strongest possible terms. Well, let's be very clear here. They say that he attacked her. He attacked her. Personal attacks on journalists. No, I believe he was attacking the outlet, calling the outlet fake news. Yeah, well, you know, CNN is actually might just be sold very soon. MAGA Voice sums it up. CNN is mad that President Trump mocked their fake news reporter. This makes me happy. Thank you, MAGA Voice. And this is not the first time President Trump called out CNN's reporting. Here is the story about the sailors on the USS Abraham Lincoln running out of food, and the retired admiral who told him otherwise.
Is there enough food on the USS Lincoln?
Yeah, it is. That was a CNN fake report. The Lincoln has been out there for a period of time, good period of time. But over the years, we've had them out there much longer. I was at a group meeting, and an admiral came up to see me over the weekend. And it was at a big group, and he happened to be an admiral retired. He said, I've been on ships that are out there much longer than that, sir. And I know people on the Lincoln, they say it's beautifully maintained and beautifully taken care of. And other people went out and they found out to be true. It was fake news reporting from CNN.
You are a loud, boisterous person. You're fake news. Be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. You're a fake reporter and you report fake news. His words. And he didn't say that defending himself. He said it defending a 10-year-old boy and the man who dragged him out of the water. That's the whole tell right there. So CNN retract the Lincoln story, name your source, apologize to that crew and to every military family that spent a weekend scared that their sailor was going hungry. Because here's what CNN gave us instead. And say it with me. Kristen Holmes is one of the most respected and accomplished journalists covering the White House. That's it. A character reference, not one word about the ship. They quit defending their reporting, and now they only defend their people. Nobody arrested her. Nobody pulled a credential. A man told a loud woman to stop yelling over a rescued kid, and 80% of the country cheered. So share this with somebody who still believes decency matters, and tell me in the comments if that boy handled himself better than the press corps. We already know the answer, and we're not asking permission anymore. You see, when a network fabricates hungry sailors and answers with a press release, you need a line that doesn't run through them. Text White House to 844-840-4963. Next News Network is credentialed inside that building. And what our people pull from the halls lands on your phone every night ahead of the crowd, no matter what YouTube decides to bury. Now, some of you, you've watched enough tape. You want to post. You want action. So text Signal to that same number, enlist in the Next News Signal Corps, and work the board with patriots who rank up by actually showing up. Get in tonight. You are fake news. I love it. Just classic Trump. Classic Trump. You are fake news. Okay. All right, let's keep moving along here. More news to cover tonight. We're going to get into the flock camera debate. President Trump weighing in from the Oval. We've got the tape and some interesting clips from a certain professor. Very dystopian, in fact. So we're going to get to that right now. Dr. Viet Trin stood up in a Columbus Council chamber and called flock a dystopian violation of our rights. A professor to their faces. And he told them 120,000 of these plate scanners are already bolted up across America since 2017. Nobody voted for one. And watch what he says about pre-crime. And watch the president's answer. Quote, "We are all under investigation at all times for all crimes." That's Dr. Viet Trin in a public chamber telling elected officials what their own contract does to you. Every time you get in your car, you go to church, a gun show, rally, doctor's office, mapped. No warrant, no probable cause, and nobody asked you. And President Trump was asked about flock cameras on camera this week. I'm going to roll his exact answer, the one with a clock on it. And I'm going to show you the A16Z ownership stake that nobody in that chamber mentioned. See, Dr. Trin stood in that Columbus chamber for one reason. He understood the machine better than the people voting on it, and understanding the mechanism is how you fight back. Same principle with your body. When you're dragging and healing slow, the cause is cellular, your mitochondria, the batteries that power everything, running low. Red and near-infrared light therapy is one of the most well-researched tools out there. Studies show it helps cells produce more energy, reduces cellular level stress, and supports natural repair processes. I dug into the science alongside health journalist Jonathan Otto before I touched it. Red Life runs 9 clinically studied wavelengths with dual-chip technology, twice the power of standard devices built to actually work. Go to myredlight.com/NNN, link in the description below. Use NNN Rep 25 for individual items, NNN Rep 30 for bundles. 30% off bundles, 25% off individual devices. Stock is limited. Now, back to the cameras that nobody voted for. Andreessen Horowitz holds roughly 15.5% of flock safety. Same firm that seeded Toka, an Israeli cyber intelligence outfit, back in 2018. That's who owns the map of where Americans drive. Now watch President Trump's answer, and watch what Trin says can never be fixed. President Trump was asked about flock cameras in the Oval. He says there's pros and cons, but his administration is studying it and will release their official views on it in the coming weeks. Let's go to the Oval Office now.
Please.
Are you
Policy
okay?
question, Mr. President?
Go ahead.
Under the policy. There's a lot of debate right now about these license plate scanners that are going up across the country. They're called flock cameras. People are worried that the police might misuse them. Have you heard of them?
Yep.
Or what's your stance?
Well, it's being studied right now. You know, you have pros and cons, right? It's being studied right now. We'll have an answer sort of as to our views on it over the next couple of weeks.
Mr. President.
We will have our views on it in just a couple of weeks. Ohio State professor Dr. Viet Trin went to the Columbus Council and called flock a dystopian violation of our rights. Here's how he says it flips policing upside down.
It is my professional opinion that flock is a dystopian violation of our rights. And what I mean by that is that it inverts the very nature of how police are supposed to function. So in traditional investigations, a crime is supposed to happen first, and then detectives are supposed to identify a list of plausible suspects, and then those suspects are placed under investigation.
You can see how it's getting flipped, right? Crime first, suspects second. That's the old way. He says under flock, everybody in that room is under investigation every time they turn the key.
Under flock, we are all, everybody in this room, every day, every time we get into our cars, we are all under investigation at all times for all crimes. Then when a crime actually does occur, the police have a list of pre-investigated suspects. That's you, that's me, that's everybody in this room who gets in a car, that's everybody in this city. So today in Columbus, our constitutional rights, especially our Fourth Amendment rights.
Columbus is breaking the Fourth Amendment daily, he says, and that whole pitch about solving crimes, well, he says it's a misnomer.
Let me phrase this another way. Today I've heard a lot in these chambers about investigating crimes. I've heard that a lot. Flock lets us investigate crimes, flock lets us prevent crimes. But it's my position that this is actually a misnomer. despite what others have said here, Flock does not investigate crimes at all. It is not a tool for investigating crimes. And that misnomer has apparently bamboozled several people in this room. Flock is, at its very foundation, a tool for investigating pre-crimes.
Wow. We are officially in the dystopian future. Pre-crime, not crime. Now the part the council didn't want to hear, he says there's no guardrails, no safeguards, no regulation fixes this.
So others in this room have implied that we can reform Flock, we can have Flock and preserve our civil liberties. We can make this technology work for us. We just need to install more safeguards, we just need to install more protections, we just need guardrails that will prevent abusers from stalking their ex-girlfriends. Yet the very nature of this technology, that is, the technology as a tool for investigating pre-crime, categorically precludes that. This is not a technology that can be reformed or regulated or
managed. He's not done. He closes by telling the chamber they can never have Flock and civil liberties both. He tells them exactly what he saw in that room.
Managed. It is not a technology that can be made righteous. On this matter, we cannot and we can never have our cake and eat it too. To believe otherwise is hubris, and to be frank, I have seen a baffling amount of hubris in these chambers today.
Quote, this is not a technology that can be reformed or regulated or managed. It's not a technology that can be made righteous. That's what he said to the room full of council members who kept promising guardrails. And he called it hubris right to their faces. He's right, patriots. You can't bolt safeguards onto a machine built to treat 340 million innocent drivers as pre-investigated suspects. Ask your city council who signed the Flock contract. That's the demand. Who reads the data? How long do they keep it? And who else gets a login? Trin walked us into that Columbus chamber. Made him squirm. And one man with facts did more damage than 1,000 angry posts. You can do exactly that. Show up. Put it on the record. President Trump said his administration has views coming in a couple of weeks, so let's make sure that the con column is loud. Yes, documented and impossible to ignore. And share this with the people in your town who sit on that council and drop a name of your city in the comments so we can track where these cameras went up. And subscribe because we're staying on this one until we get an answer. You see, Trin got his 2 minutes in Columbus. We get ours from inside that building. Text White House to 844-840-4963. Next News Network drops reports pulled straight from the press pool onto your phone every night ahead of the crowd and past whatever YouTube decides to bury. And see, some of you read that and immediately want a job. Well, here's one. Simply text signal to that same number and you're enlisted in the Next News Signal Corps. Real missions, real ranks, and a command center where every patriot works off the same board. That's how a surveillance grid dies. So get in there tonight. All right, folks, it's great to be back in studio and great to be back on schedule. And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. I have some family events to attend to. Make sure you check out the Altar of Pergamon, the exclusive interview with Jonathan Cahn I just did and just published on the channel. It is going to blow your mind. And I told him that I would only interview him if I received a signed copy of the book. And, of course, there it is, a signed copy, an advanced copy, I believe. And this story is fascinating. As a student of Bible prophecy and one who's tasked to keep watch for the signs and the seasons of Christ's return, that's me. That's the command that the Lord has given me. So I use the news as a means to fulfill that, to watch. I read the headlines. I look for those signs every single day. And the interview with Jonathan Cahn helps merge those two elements. The news with the prophecy and history all wrapped up into one. I think you're really, really going to like this interview. Certainly one of my most favorite interviews I've done, especially on this topic. I do a lot of interviews, but it's not very often I get to go into this realm of prophecy, which is truly a passion of mine. So, again, the Lord has called me to be a watchman, to share the news, but also, remember, whenever I'm looking at the news, I'm also, and I may not say this all the time, I'm also in the back of my mind tracking the prophecy from Scripture, because I know there's only one way out of this. Not through politicians, and not through, our own actions. It is through the blood of Christ. And that's how we succeed. Covered in the blood, victorious in the end, because that's how that book ends. And we're getting closer to the end. And we're at the end of the show. So thanks for watching. I love you guys. Have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.